This video discusses how we use Python to read data from a data file. First of all, there will be a Python file that will be the source program. Then there will be other data files. There may be lots of data files here. We can call this data file 1. Then we can have a data file 2.txt and so on. But notice these files are all in the same folder. So Python can read a file that it can get to in the same folder. It can actually read outside that, but right now, this is the easiest way to explain it. So the Python file can go to this file if it exists, and in the Python program, it would use special functions that would open that file. As long as it's been opened, it can be read using the file's object's read method. We have a special method called the read method to read its entire contents into memory. When you call the read method, it returns the file's contents as a string. Although the read method allows you to easily read the entire contents of a file with one statement, many programs need to read and process the items that are stored in a file one at a time or as individual entities. Therefore, reading data from a file is the process of retrieving data from a file. That file is the input file. That is the file where the data is going to be read from. It is stored inside the same folder where the Python source program is stored. There are 3 steps when a program uses a file. That file has to be opened, the file has to be processed, and the file must be closed. And this is just an example of the data that is copied from a file to RAM memory and is referenced by variables. When Python reads a file, there are 2 types of files and access methods. In general, the 2 types of files are the text file, containing data that has been encoded as text, or binary file, contains data that has not been converted to text. The 2 ways that we access the data stored in a file is sequentially. Files are read sequentially from the beginning to the end, can't skip ahead. So that's sequential access. The next one is direct access. It can jump directly to any piece of data in that file. We already understand that file extensions are just short sequences of characters that appear at the end of a file name preceded by a period. Those extensions indicate the type of data stored in the file. For example, if you see .txt, we know that's a text file. The file object is that object associated with that specific file. It provides a way for the program to work with that file, the file object referenced by that variable, so that we minimize the long, lengthy statements that we would have to use when we're opening a file, closing a file, retrieving a file, etc. So we just use the file object to associate with a specific file. Essentially, a variable name, it references that object file, that file object that's on the disk. Again, when we talked about the write mode, we use open to write. We're going to use open to read. So open function used to open a file. We create a file object and associate it with a file on the disk. File object is equal to open the file name, comma, mode. In this case, the mode is going to be R for reading. We read only the R, and the W is for write, and of course the A is for append. If the open function receives a file name that does not contain a path it assumes that the file is in the same directory as that program or that source program file, Python. If the program is running and the file is created, it is created in the same folder or the directory as that program. When we wrote or we used the write method, that file was written inside of the same folder where your Python source code was located. I would like to iterate that we can specify the alternative path and file name in the open function arguments. The prefix the path string literal with the letter R. Just to clarify a few concepts concerning the read method, the read method, it's the file object method that reads the entire file contents into memory. It only works if the file has been opened for reading and the contents returned as a string. There's a read line method. The file object method, it reads a line from the file. The line returns as a string, including the escape code \n. The read position, it marks the location of the next item to be read from that file. In most cases, the data items written to a file are values referenced by the variables. Usually, it is necessary to concatenate a escape code or \n in closing quotes to data before writing it. It's carried out using the plus operation in the argument of the write method. So in many cases, we need to remove that \n from the string after it is read from a file. So we use what they call the rstrip method. This string method strips the specific characters from the end of that. Before I show you the actual Python code, let's kind of look at pseudocode. We want to check to make sure that the file to be read exists in the same folder where the Python file is stored. We want to be able to open a file to be read. We're going to use the read method to read the file, close the file, and then we will print the contents of that file using Python. Here's one way that this program will be executed. We can actually place the name of the file in the Python program for reading by just saying, giving a variable name to act as the object of the file that's to be opened, and it's going to be opened, and then that's at line 5. In file is just an arbitrary variable name that I made up or that was made up. This example is in your textbook. File underscore contents is equal to in file.read. So we read the file's content, we close that file, and then we print the results. So we run the program, and what it does is it created that it from the file called philosophers.txt, it displayed the results as one string of characters. And this is what you're going to see at the very bottom. And I believe there's about 27 or 28 different names of different philosophers. Okay, so let's make some changes to this program. In the next video, you will see where we're going to revise this program so that a user can enter the name of the file that needs to be read. And if that file is not available, we're going to indicate by using an exception rule in our Python program. So stay tuned for the next part.